Hey everyone, welcome back to Try Not to Sleep. I'm your host, Ethan Brooks, and as always, we're here with another calm, slightly boring story from history to help you unwind. Tonight, we will be talking about the truth of the ancient Tartaria conspiracy. Before we start, let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? I love seeing how far our sleepy little history crew reaches. All right, get comfortable. And let's see how far you make it before you fall asleep. The legend of Tartaria claims a vast and powerful empire hidden from history. Scholars find this narrative intriguing yet inconsistent. Tartaria often appears on maps from the 16th to 18th centuries as a significant Asian kingdom. These maps depict a world unfamiliar to many today, sparking curiosity and speculation. In early cartographic works, Tartaria stretched across parts of modern-day Russia, Mongolia, and China. European explorers and mapmakers like Gerhard Mercator and Sebastian Münster contributed to this portrayal. They crafted maps based on limited knowledge, compiling reports and conjectures from travelers. During this period, Europe's understanding of Asian territories was murky. The name Tartaria comes from the Latin Tartarus, referring to distant or obscure lands. It indicated regions not fully explored by Western adventurers. As Russia expanded eastward, Catherine the Great ordered detailed surveys, revealing inconsistencies in previous maps. By the mid-19th century, Tartaria's boundaries vanished from cartography. Tartars, actual nomadic tribes, were sometimes confused with this mythical land. Historians and geographers struggled to distinguish legend from fact. Some theorists suggest these omissions imply deliberate historical concealment. Yet, evidence shows changing map accuracy, not conspiracy. Cartographers updated maps as more information emerged through exploration and political shifts. Why do tales of Tartaria persist despite historical clarifications? Does the allure lie in forgotten grandeur or mistrust of official narrative? People seek hidden histories, hoping to uncover what might have been lost. Though enigmatic, the story of Tartaria reflects the evolution of geographic understanding. The next inquiry will explore the actual cultures and peoples living in areas once labeled as Tartaria, shedding light on ancient traditions and historical transitions. Historically, the region identified as Tartaria included various nomadic and settled cultures. The Mongols, under Genghis Khan, established a formidable empire in the early 13th century. This empire stretched from Eastern Europe to the Sea of Japan. The Mongol invasions and their administrative systems had a lasting impact on the region's political landscape. The Golden Horde, a Mongol Khanate, ruled parts of Russia and Eastern Europe for over 2 centuries. It maintained trade routes and facilitated cultural exchanges, influencing the development of Russia. As the Mongol Empire fragmented, other Khanates emerged. These included the Chagatai Khanate and the Timurid Empire. Timur, also known as Tamerlane, emerged as a significant conqueror in the late 14th century. His empire covered areas of Central Asia, Iran, and the Indian subcontinent. Timur's military campaigns and patronage of the arts left a profound legacy. His descendants, the Mughals, later established a dynasty in India. In the 16th century, the Russian Empire began expanding eastward. This expansion involved the annexation of Siberia and the absorption of various ethnic groups. The Cossacks, Russian explorers and warriors, played a crucial role in this expansion. By the 18th century, Russia had established control over Siberia, reaching the Pacific Ocean. The Qing dynasty of China also influenced regions associated with Tartaria. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the Qing rulers consolidated power in Mongolia, Xinjiang, and Tibet. The Qing expansion impacted the cultural and political dynamics of these areas. The indigenous peoples of Siberia and Central Asia, such as the Tungusic, Turkic, and Mongolic groups, continued to maintain their languages and traditions. Despite the dominance of empires, local cultures adapted and survived. Shamanistic practices, oral traditions, and clan structures persisted. Throughout these transitions, the perceived image of Tartaria faded. Detailed surveys and more accurate maps replaced mythical representations. The work of explorers like Vitus, Bering, and geographers, such as those involved in the Great Northern Expedition, contributed to this clearer understanding. In the 19th century, ethnographic studies further documented the region's diversity. Researchers aimed to explore cultural practices, languages, and histories. This scholarly work helped to dispel myths and provide a clearer picture of the people's lives and heritage. The legend of Tartaria persists in some circles, often fueled by modern conspiracy theories. These narratives speculate about hidden histories and suppressed truths. However, historical evidence supports a narrative of evolving geographic understanding rather than concealment. In conclusion, the story of Tartaria offers insights into historical cartography and the complexities of cultural identity. The transitions from mythical depictions to documented realities reflect human curiosity and the quest for knowledge. The legacy of the peoples and cultures once associated with Tartaria endures, contributing to the rich tapestry of history. Tartaria appeared on many European maps from the 16th to 18th century. It covered areas in present-day Russia and Central Asia, stretching to Siberia in the east. This vast expanse reflected European exploration efforts and limited understanding of the Asian steppe. Cartographers, confronting the unknown, labeled this region as Tartaria to make sense of uncharted territories. Boundaries of Tartaria varied widely across maps, showing inconsistent demarcation. The label often applied broadly, encompassing various cultural and political landscapes. For example, Samarkand, under the Tartarian label, held a rich history. Situated on the Silk Road, Samarkand served as a trade hub, reflecting diverse cultural exchanges. Moscow, now a central Russian city, appeared inconsistently, hinting at changing regional influences over time. European explorers, including Marco Polo, mentioned these vast areas in their writings. Their accounts informed the evolving map depictions of Tartaria. These travelers contributed to the perception of the region's vastness and complexity. However, the identity of Tartaria on maps often lacked consistency, revealing both the ambitions and limitations of European cartographers. They grappled with fragmentary reports and indirect sources. The term Tartary became associated with nomadic tribes. Mongol expansions had earlier shaped European notions of these lands. Western texts frequently labeled the inhabitants as Tartars, which rested on ethnic misunderstandings. These tribal societies exhibited complex social structures and adapted skillfully to their environments. Nomads, adept horsemen, navigated the challenging terrain effectively. Cartographers had to rely on second-hand accounts and incomplete surveys, which led to errors. Some parts of the mapped region contain developed urban centers and trade routes, contradicting the idea of a barren wilderness. Such misunderstandings often fueled myths, eventually spiraling into theories of a hidden empire in Tartaria. Tartaria's depiction on maps reveals the difficulties European mapmakers faced in defining foreign land. It underscores the challenges of distinguishing fact from fiction in historical cartography. The concept of Tartaria and its fluid boundaries also highlight changing perceptions of power and influence in these regions. Shifts in dominance, trade, and cultural exchanges were ongoing, even as maps labeled those areas under one broad term. Re-examining specific cultural and political developments within these regions offers clearer insight. Urban centers such as Samarkand played influential roles long before European maps marked Tartaria. The intricate networks of trade and communication among various communities remained significant. Nomadic tribes, despite their portrayal, maintained important economic and social ties across the region. The narrative of Tartaria on European maps serves as a lens into the complexities of historical cartographic practices. It reflects the broader context of how Europeans sought to catalog and understand distant lands. Ultimately, the myth of Tartaria provides a window into the ambitions, misunderstandings, and biases present in map-making of the time. By examining the realities behind the label, historians can better appreciate the diverse cultures and rich histories of the regions once simply designated as Tartaria. Understanding the limitations and perspectives of those who first mapped these lands helps clarify the enduring puzzle of separating historical reality from exploratory myth. The Tartaria conspiracy suggests a vast, advanced civilization erased from history, claiming hidden truths about human progress. This concept stems from medieval maps, showing a vast region labeled Tartary across Asia and Eastern Europe. In the 17th century, cartographers like Joan Blow depicted this area. However, they lacked detailed information about societies or governance. Historians agree that Tartary referred to regions inhabited by diverse nomadic tribes, not a unified state. Proponents argue that Tartaria's cultural achievements were unmatched, pointing to architectural remnants like star forts in Europe and Russia as evident. These structures, they suggest, indicate advanced engineering attributed to this missing civilization. However, historians attribute these forts to European powers like France and Prussia, built for military purposes based on Renaissance design. Claims of Tartaria's unique script and language exist, but lack concrete evidence. Linguists identify most inscriptions as Turkic or Slavic languages from known culture. Another claim in the conspiracy is the Great Tartarian Reset, an alleged massive, unexplained cataclysm. While records of natural disasters in Eurasia exist, none align with a narrative of worldwide destruction of knowledge. Evidence of erased history often cites inventory lists of antiquities in archives. Yet these lists typically show cataloging errors or losses from decay and conflict over centuries. Ancient maps are central to the conspiracy. They frequently show Tartary as expansive, but also label regions like Muscovy and Siberia. Scholars see this as Western cartographers' limited knowledge rather than evidence of erasure. Maps evolved as explorers like Marco Polo traveled eastward, leading to more accurate geographical representations. Tartary eventually disappeared from modern maps. These changes illustrate exploration's role in correcting misconceptions, not verifying hidden civilizations. Believers claim a systematic destruction to hide Tartaria's past, requiring an implausible global effort to alter records and artifacts. Historical continuity in the region includes accounts of Mongol and Cossack influence, contradicting the notion of forgotten empires. Focus often shifts to speculative narratives, lacking documented evidence or archaeological finding. The cultural significance of the Tartaria conspiracy reflects skepticism towards conventional history, illustrating mistrust in institutions preserving the past. This skepticism leads to questioning documented history and creates an allure towards alternative narratives. Why do societies embrace these theories instead of recorded knowledge? The appeal may lie in the human tendency to seek hidden truths, even at the expense of verified scholarship. People intrigued by such theories often find fascination in myths and forgotten histories. The search for undiscovered truths, however unlikely, resonates on a broader level. It presents a challenge to established narratives and invites exploration of what could have been, rather than what was recorded. The narrative around Tartaria exemplifies the power of alternative history to captivate the imagination, suggesting worlds erased or never acknowledged. It illustrates how history can be reshaped to fit modern doubts and curiosities. The lack of concrete evidence does little to deter believers, as the possibility of a hidden past holds enduring appeal. Despite the historical consistency and documentation available, the idea of a lost civilization continues to thrive. It reflects a broader cultural curiosity and a tendency to question even well-documented past events. Such theories often emerge from dissatisfaction with existing explanations or a desire to uncover grand narratives. In summary, the Tartaria conspiracy manifests in potential architectural misattributions, misunderstood ancient maps, and speculative global cataclysm. It raises questions about human progress and the safeguarding of history. While concrete evidence remains lacking, the intrigue persists. It underscores not only a fascination with history, but also a deep-seated curiosity about what might lie beyond the accepted truths. And this curiosity, while compelling, often finds itself at odds with scholarly research and documented history. Nonetheless, it continues to attract those eager to explore the fringes of the historical record, challenging the boundaries of conventional scholarship. In the 18th and 19th centuries, European intellectuals questioned gaps in historical narrative. Figures like Jean-Sylvain Bailly, a French astronomer, challenged established history by speculating about advanced ancient civilizations existing long before recorded times. He proposed that a civilization with advanced knowledge thrived in Siberia. This aligns with the Enlightenment's thirst for understanding human development. In Russia, historian Nikolai Novikov expanded these ideas, weaving local folklore into theories of a forgotten empire. Enthusiasts examined old maps showing a vast Tartarian empire, claiming evidence of a hidden past. These theories suggested Tartaria covered much of Eurasia. Some maps from the 16th to 19th centuries labeled regions known today as Russia, Mongolia, and parts of Central Asia as Tartary. Theorists pointed out discrepancies between map boundaries and historical narratives, suggesting historians erased Tartaria to strengthen emerging nation-state narratives. Critics argued that the Tartary label represented a Eurocentric misunderstanding of diverse nomadic cultures. Historians noted cartographers used Great Tartary as a placeholder for poorly documented lands, rather than evidence of a grand empire. Many maps were speculative or decorative, not necessarily accurate. Why did these theories persist? People longed for mystery or reacted to geopolitical shifts. Alternate views and counter-theories emerged as questions lingered. In the 20th century, new technology and methods transformed perceptions of Tartaria. Digital mapping, archaeological advances, and archival research provided clearer insights. Modern historians reassess Tartary with technological tools. Satellite imagery revealed the varied landscapes and cultures of Eurasia. Archival research clarified misconceptions, showing the diversity and adaptability of nomadic societies. These communities adjusted to environmental changes, migrations, and trade. Research indicated that what appeared as a single Tartarian empire was a blend of different tribes, each with its own governance, language, and traditions. The idea of a unified Tartaria oversimplified complex realities. It was essentially a construct of Western maps that lacked accurate information. Digital tools allowed historians to reevaluate primary sources. Textual analysis uncovered inconsistencies and biases in early accounts, highlighting the risks of relying solely on European perspectives for non-European histories. Pre-modern travelers and writers often used Tartary as a generalized term for unfamiliar regions, not reflecting Central and Northern Asia's intricate social landscape. The persistence of Tartaria theories also highlighted a human tendency toward thrilling narratives. The allure of a lost civilization sparked imaginations and critiqued conventional history. As evidence solidified, the narrative shifted from myths of a lost empire to an appreciation of Eurasian historical complexities. Interest in Tartaria served as a prism through which cultural, political, and historical developments were refracted. It challenged historians to reassess assumptions and explore nuances in lesser-known past. The case of Tartaria underscored comprehensive and diverse sources' importance in constructing a fuller historical picture. Understanding Tartaria's myths involves considering the broader context of historical study. It highlights evolving methodologies historians use to distinguish speculation from fact. It also reflects societal shifts in understanding identity, heritage, and the past's influence on modern narratives. The legacy of early theorists reminds us of historical knowledge's provisional nature. It underscores interpretation's role and the power dynamics in constructing historical memory. As historians delve into Eurasian history's layers, Tartaria's story remains an intriguing chapter in the discourse on past civilization. In assessing the evidence, historians dispelled the myth of a vast unified Tartarian empire. Instead, they painted a picture of diverse nomadic cultures responding to their environments and each other. This more nuanced view displaced earlier speculative maps and narratives. Historians leveraged digital tools to reinterpret textual evidence, reveal biases, and establish a clearer understanding of these societies. The fascination with Tartaria reflects a broader human search for mystery and belonging. People are drawn to stories of lost civilizations as reflections of their quests for identity and meaning. Yet, as historical scholarship progresses, the focus shifts from mythic constructs to recognizing and valuing historical complexity. Investigating Tartaria challenged historical assumptions and expanded understanding. It emphasized the need for diverse perspectives and sources in historical inquiry. As new methods emerged, they opened paths to explore past narratives with greater depth and accuracy. Early narratives of a grand Tartarian empire fostered intrigue, but ultimately did not withstand rigorous scrutiny. They prompted historians to confront biases and gaps. The story of Tartaria remains a testament to history's dynamic and evolving nature. It underscores the necessity of continuous exploration and reevaluation to enrich our understanding of human heritage and development. In Eurasia, Tartaria appeared on maps from the 16th century. Cartographers placed it east of the Urals, but details remained vague. Maps often labeled this vast area with little accuracy. The term Tartaria persisted, fueling theories of a mysterious empire. The nomenclature shifted with political changes, reflecting European imagination more than any centralized state. Scholars observed the inconsistency and questioned these persistent myths. Key texts, like Novus Atlas, by Blow perpetuated the notion of Tartaria as both a place and people. Blow's maps, published in the 17th century, described the region in general terms without offering concrete evidence of a unified state. Scholars later found inconsistencies between these accounts and archaeological finds. Items like the Carta Marina portrayed Tartaria, yet evidence of its boundaries or governance remained elusive. Writings beyond Europe, such as Qing Chinese records, referred to tribes and territories, but did not recognize a notable Tartarian empire. This absence raised questions about the map's historical accuracy and scope. Artifacts attributed to Tartaria include bronze tools and inscription. Some claim these objects prove a sophisticated culture, but archaeologists often date them to local tribes or broader cultural influences. Excavations in Siberia and Central Asia have unearthed complex societies, yet none clearly align with a distinct Tartarian narrative. Researchers cataloged items, linking them to established cultures like the Scythians or Mongols. The context of each artifact suggests trade, war, or migration, not an empire. Many findings show signs of foreign influences, challenging the notion of an isolated Tartarian culture. The Tartaria tablets, discovered in present-day Romania and dating to around 5300 BC, are cited as early Tartarian script. Experts attribute them to early European symbols unrelated to the Tartaria myth. The tablets bearing incised symbols appeared near Neolithic communities. Archaeologists linked them to Vinca culture, rather than a Tartarian connection. This disconnect between hopes of a lost civilization and scientific analysis persists. Each artifact reflects local habits, economies, and artistic expression, not empire-scale unity. Despite weak evidence, why do these ideas endure? Some point to the allure of mystery, suggesting explanations for cultural diffusion without colonial views. Other theories suggest the names and maps responded more to European desires to categorize the unknown. These reflections on history's gaps reveal the challenges in separating fact from fiction. Researchers continue to study maps and objects. The search for Tartaria highlights how people interpret history and assign meaning to antiquity. What unexplored connections might the next text or artifact reveal? Academic discussions often revisit these maps and accounts, challenging their authenticity and influence. Understanding Europe's historical context helps illuminate why cartographers and writers might have clung to the idea of a distant, undefined land. During the age of exploration, vast unexplored territories beckoned. Cartographers occupied themselves with naming, mapping, and speculating about lands beyond their knowledge. Tartaria symbolized these uncharted spaces. The term also slipped into European literary and academic references, complicating historical truth. Authors and scholars sometimes romanticized distant lands, mixing reality with fiction. This tendency blended narrative creation with observed or reported fact. Tartaria, with limited concrete evidence, offered a canvas onto which various cultures projected their narratives. Across centuries, names on maps and artifacts stirred debate within academic circles. Enthusiasts sought links between existing artifacts and the Tartarian story. They imagined connections that weren't borne out by evidence. Nonetheless, cultural diffusion, long-distance trade, and shared techniques between tribes and regions were genuine phenomena. These aspects, often misread as centralized control, suggested rich networks instead. As methodologies evolved, later scholars evaluated earlier claims with more skepticism. They used archaeology, linguistic studies, and cultural analysis to understand the region's past. They documented connections between known cultures rather than a single, expansive empire. The Mongol Empire and its fragments provided more direct historical context for the areas once marked as Tartaria. Despite this, popular interest persists. Some hold on to the idea of hidden histories, craving complexity and intrigue, often missing in the straightforward story of trade and migration. These persistent myths invite discussions on how societies record and remember their past. This narrative of Tartaria, mostly deconstructed by modern scholarship, reminds us of history's fragility. It demonstrates how incomplete knowledge leaves room for speculation. It warns of the narratives that fill historical voids, often shaped more by the needs of those who tell them than by those who live them. Understanding how these stories form and persist offers insight into the intersection of myth, memory, and history. Future findings may further refine these interpretations as the past continues to inform the present. In the early 21st century, social media platforms like YouTube, Reddit, and Facebook played a significant role in spreading the Tartaria conspiracy theory. This theory emerged around 2016 and claimed that there was a hidden history of an ancient empire, allegedly concealed by mainstream historians. The internet facilitated the rapid dissemination of such ideas, reaching diverse global audiences. Various users on these platforms actively created and shared a vast amount of content related to the theory. Videos frequently presented historic maps and architectural images, purporting to provide evidence of Tartaria's existence. Enthusiasts pointed to structures such as the St. Petersburg State Hermitage Museum as proof, arguing that these buildings were representative of an advanced civilization. The widespread sharing of content significantly amplified these claims. Social media algorithms prioritized engaging content, often favoring sensational narratives over factual accuracy. This mechanism played a crucial role in propagating the Tartaria theory. Platforms promoted content that generated reactions, inadvertently giving prominence to the conspiracy. Online forums provided a space for enthusiasts to build communities, enabling collaboration that produced more content, including articles, videos, and podcasts. This feedback loop further reinforced the beliefs held by its proponents. The absence of editorial oversight on these platforms allowed speculative ideas to thrive. Misinformation could easily blend with legitimate historical discussion. Critics consistently highlighted the lack of primary sources and scholarly support for the Tartaria theory. Historians pointed out the theory's insufficient concrete evidence, and countered claims with documented historical facts. Some historians engaged directly with proponents, but often found that online debates remained inconclusive. The theory's appeal lay partly in its intrigue, blending mystery with a narrative of perceived censorship. Many individuals found the concept of an alternative historical narrative compelling. The idea that history could be hidden or altered resonated with those skeptical of mainstream accounts. Yet, the nature of digital echo chambers raised critical questions about how theories like this spread so effectively. Technology's role in shaping historical narratives continues to evolve. As new platforms and algorithms emerge, the potential impact on the dissemination of similar theories remains an open question. The rapid spread of such ideas challenges traditional modes of knowledge, dissemination, and verification. The Tartaria conspiracy serves as a case study in how digital platforms can be used to propel alternative historical narratives. The tools available on the internet enable not only the sharing of information, but also the reshaping of it. Algorithms, by design, promote content based on engagement metrics rather than accuracy, which can skew public perception. This dynamic raises concerns about the quality of information that circulates widely. The structural nature of social media platforms allows for the creation of self-reinforcing echo chambers. When surrounded by like-minded individuals, users can develop a stronger conviction in unverified theories. The comfort of encountering familiar beliefs can perpetuate misinformation. Historians and educators face the challenge of addressing these pervasive narratives. Misinformation can hinder understanding of history, but it also presents an opportunity to engage with audiences who may be intrigued by alternative perspectives. Clear evidence and rational discourse become crucial tools in countering unfounded claims. The digital landscape transforms traditional barriers to communication, allowing for direct interactions between experts and the general public. Some view this as an opportunity to democratize access to knowledge, while others caution against the risks of spreading inaccuracies. The digital age represents a shift in how society interacts with historical content. The balance between accessibility and reliability remains delicate. Social media's influence on historical narratives represents both a potential for greater understanding and a risk of misinformation. As platforms continue to evolve, the mechanisms of knowledge dissemination must adapt. The Tartaria theory illustrates the complexities and challenges of navigating historical narratives in a digital world. It shows how compelling stories, coupled with technology's reach, can shift perceptions and create new realities for many. Understanding this process highlights the responsibilities of content creators, platform operators, and educators alike. Addressing these narratives requires collaboration across disciplines to ensure that historical accuracy is maintained. The role of digital platforms in shaping public understanding of history underscores the importance of critical engagement with emerging narrative. This ongoing dialogue between history and technology invites an examination of how society values and interprets the past. The spread of the Tartaria conspiracy theory underscores the potential for digital platforms to alter traditional historical narrative. As technology evolves, so too does its impact on how history is remembered and understood. The story of Tartaria offers insights into broader themes of communication, belief, and truth in the digital age. The concept of Tartaria suggests a lost empire with advanced architecture, fueling conspiracy theories of historical cover-up. Advocates claim architectural achievements in Russia as evidence. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, buildings in Moscow and St. Petersburg, such as the Kazan Cathedral and Peterhof Palace, became focal points for this theory. Supporters assert that these structures could not have been built by known societies of the time. Proponents argue for advanced construction techniques in these buildings. These building. They highlight features like large domes and complex facades, claiming these designs exceed the capabilities of contemporary technology. Examples include St. Basil's Cathedral, noted for its intricate onion domes. Enthusiasts interpret these elements as evidence of superior Tartarian engineering. Some buildings exhibit a scale and style that suggest different influences. Proponents mention anomalous artifacts within constructions. They argue that symbols in certain structures don't align with known cultural motifs, claiming these as Tartarian signatures. Alleged anachronisms in architecture foster speculation of a misplaced timeline. Critics challenge these claims. Architectural historians argue that these buildings reflect a mix of cultural influences. Russian and Byzantine styles often intertwine, supporting conventional views. Historians emphasize documented technological advancements from that era. Construction records detail the architectural progress of the time, showing that improved scaffolding and materials enabled grand designs. Artisans and architects collaborated across cultures, resulting in blended styles. Historians question the need to attribute these achievements to a mythical empire. Conventional records explain how these buildings fit within historical contexts. Moreover, the architectural features seen in these structures are consistent with known technological capabilities and cultural exchanges of the period. The narrative shifts to broader claims about Tartaria's supposed existence. Is there historical weight to this legend? Mainstream history focuses on tangible evidence from artifacts, documents, and architectural studies. Claims about Tartaria lack support from verifiable sources. Tartaria, as a term, appeared on some maps in the 16th and 17th centuries, referring to vast areas of Central and Northern Asia. These references align with known territories of nomadic tribes, not a unified empire. Mapmakers labeled large, unfamiliar regions generically, explaining these historical notations. The growth of the Tartaria theory ties to misunderstandings and reinterpretations of historical records. In contrast, archaeological and historical research consistently aligns with documented historical developments. Artifacts from the regions in question reflect local cultures and recognized empires. Assertions that Tartaria predates other civilizations overlook evidence supporting known histories. Technological and cultural advancements in the regions identified are well documented. They illustrate progress consistent with the broader historical timeline. Skeptics stress the importance of distinguishing between documented history and speculative narratives. The historical context of the building cited by Tartaria proponents relates logically to known cultural and technological exchanges. Exchanges between Byzantine and Russian societies, among others, influenced architectural styles. Historical evidence supports the existence and achievements of known societies in these areas. Claims of Tartarian influence lack authentic documentation. Studies focusing on the architectural methods of the era reveal that the designs and constructions attributed to Tartaria can be explained by known historical development. In conclusion, the Tartarian architecture theory remains speculative. Mainstream historical and architectural evidence supports a different narrative. Claims of a lost empire lack the tangible, documented basis that supports known histories. Research affirms that the remarkable structures of Moscow and St. Petersburg fit within established historical contexts. Beyond architecture, the legend of Tartaria extends to claims of erased histories. Proponents suggest global conspiracies, proposing that a vast empire once spanned continents. They assert that deliberate suppression removed Tartaria from historical records. Supporters often point to maps and documents that reference Tartaria, insisting these sources validate their claims. However, historians explain that mapmakers of the past frequently referenced expansive and unexplored regions with broad labels. Such naming conventions were common, reflecting the limited geographical understanding of the time. Historical assessments of archives and documents reveal that existing histories align with documented events and developments. Those asserting a Tartarian past often rely on selective interpretation, ignoring consistent evidence from primary historical sources. Researchers emphasize rigorous methodologies, drawing from diverse archives to piece together accurate historical narrative. In exploring the architectural feats of Moscow and St. Petersburg, historians identify clear influences from known societies. The Russian Empire engaged in extensive cultural and technological exchanges, adopting and adapting styles from neighboring regions. These interactions fostered diverse architectural expressions, contrary to the Tartarian narrative. Further scrutiny of construction techniques reveals that advanced methods were well within the reach of contemporary builders. Improved craftsmanship, coupled with the advent of new materials, enabled the creation of grand structures. Documentation from the era provides detailed accounts of architectural innovation, challenging claims of anachronistic abilities. The assertion of a Tartarian empire as an advanced civilization overlooks the interconnected nature of historical development. Societies evolved through shared knowledge, trading ideas and innovations across borders. The concept of a singular, forgotten empire with collapse-resistant capabilities remains unsupported by tangible evidence. Critics also highlight the absence of archaeological findings that substantiate a Tartarian civilization. Explorations and excavations in the regions purportedly under Tartarian control yield artifacts consistent with existing historical narratives. These findings corroborate the achievements of established societies, undermining claims of hidden history. In summation, the Tartaria hypothesis lacks empirical backing. Historical and archaeological evidence points consistently to the known trajectories of societies involved. The rich architectural heritage of Moscow and St. Petersburg stands as a testament to documented historical evolution, rather than lost grandeur. Mainstream academic consensus reinforces the integrity of established historical records. Architectural achievements attributed to Tartaria can be traced through documented exchanges and innovations of the time. This perspective highlights the dynamic nature of history, characterized by continued inquiry and evidence-based conclusion. The narrative of a hidden Tartarian empire reflects broader themes in historical myth-making. It emphasizes the appeal of mysterious pasts and lost civilization. But robust, documented histories offer a comprehensive account of human achievement across ages. Understanding architectural marvels within historical contexts enriches the appreciation of cultural and technological legacies. This approach honors the contributions of known civilizations and affirms the collaborative evolution of human societies. Ultimately, the Tartaria theory serves as a reminder of the importance of critical engagement with historical claims. It underscores the necessity of grounding narratives in verifiable evidence. Recognizing the achievements of historical societies enriches our shared history, revealing intricate tapestries of cultural and technological progress. Artifacts often challenge accepted narratives. The Tartaria controversy suggests an alternate history. In the 19th century, maps and documents from Europe and Russia mentioned an empire called Tartaria. These placed various Asian regions under its banner, indicating its significance before modern states emerged. Historians debate these references, questioning their validity and origins. A notable artifact is the 1654 map by cartographer Joan Blow. It depicts Tartaria as a vast region. Historical maps were frequently inaccurate, reflecting beliefs more than facts. Yet, the consistent appearance of Tartaria on multiple maps has led some to propose the existence of a forgotten civilization. Passports from the era listed Tartarian nationality, but historians indicate this was likely a misunderstanding of regional names. Contemporary manuscripts describe Tartaria with various mythical elements, mentioning grand architecture and city planning. However, skeptics argue that these descriptions are exaggerations or mistranslation. The persistent mention of Tartaria across many sources supports conspiracy theories, though these claims generally lack archaeological evidence, which historians regard as essential. An intriguing artifact is the Tartarian tablet, discovered in the Balkans. Some believers claim it holds writing from an ancient civilization predating Mesopotamian scripts. However, experts largely consider it an early European artifact, unrelated to Tartaria, leaving questions about ancient connection. Some frame these gaps as evidence of historical suppression. Most historians dismiss the Tartaria conspiracy, viewing it as a misinterpretation. But the idea persists among those challenging mainstream historical accounts. As new discoveries arise, they call for renewed investigation into history's complexities. Modern technology plays a critical role in unraveling the Tartaria narrative. Digital tools now analyze ancient texts and maps, offering insights into historical accuracy. Satellite imagery assists in identifying potential archaeological sites. Advanced techniques examine the material composition of maps, providing context about their origins and authenticity. History evolves through rediscovery and reinterpretation. Every artifact, text, and map requires thorough scrutiny. The complexities found in historical evidence present challenges to researchers, creating space for ongoing debate. Although most in the academic community regard Tartaria as a historical misreading, the controversy highlights the broader dialogue between established narratives and alternative theories. Technology continues to hone our understanding, revealing or debunking claim. The investigation into Tartaria emphasizes the importance of evidence-based history. This process underscores an ongoing quest to comprehend the past through tangible evidence and sound methodology. In summary, the narrative of Tartaria and its associated artifacts reflects a human drive to explore forgotten histories. Modern technology provides researchers with tools to either validate or refute claims, shaping the dialogue between evidence and theory within historical research. Understanding remains in flux, driven by discoveries and reinterpretations, ensuring history's complexity endures. The story of Tartaria illustrates how rumors and myths can distort historical facts. Some argue it was a vast empire existing until the 17th century, suggesting hidden powers erased it from history. Tartary maps from the 16th and 17th centuries show a large region in Asia, reflecting the geographical understandings of the time. These maps indicated a vast, largely unexplored area beyond Russian and Chinese control. Historians clarify that Tartary was a European term for Central Asia and Siberia. It described geographic vastness, not a cohesive political entity. The confusion stemmed from early European accounts that combined real observations with tales. Marco Polo mentioned Tartars in his 13th century travels, influencing European thought with a mix of fact and fiction. Maps from that era often included speculative details, merging sparse data with imaginative illustration. As European exploration expanded, map accuracy improved, correcting earlier misconceptions. Over time, the name Tartary faded, leading some to wonder if its history was deliberately obscured. In recent years, narratives have emerged, proposing Tartaria as an advanced, hidden civilization. These claims suggest suppressed knowledge but overlook documented historical progressions. The lack of credible evidence or artifacts challenges these views. Archaeological findings and historical records from Russia and surrounding regions show no signs of a global empire. The persistence of this story is fueled by a fascination with lost civilizations and forbidden knowledge. Historians point to patterns in such conspiracy claims, citing the selective use of sources and the ignoring of contradicting evidence. This myth grew from a misreading of historical texts and maps, serving as springboards for unwarranted conclusions about global conspiracies. Tartary was often depicted as a wild, uncharted world, more a product of the European imagination than reality. This perception influenced 16th and 17th century maps, which labeled vast expanses as Tartary, filled with unknowns. European explorers added accounts that mixed observation with myth, reinforcing misconceptions. By the 18th century, scientific exploration and more accurate cartography began to define the true geography of Asia. Explorers like Vitus bearing expanded knowledge of these areas, and Russian expeditions mapped Siberia more thoroughly. The fading use of Tartary on maps reflected a growing understanding, dismissing earlier fictional elements. Still, the myth of Tartaria persists in some circles, spawning theories about erased histories. These theories often claim advanced technologies and lost knowledge, pointing to anomalies in architecture and artifacts as evidence. Mainstream historians argue these claims rely on speculative interpretations, lacking solid proof. Conspiracy theories regarding Tartaria exemplify a broader tendency to romanticize past civilization. The idea of an erased empire fits narratives about suppressed histories, though it contradicts established historical evidence. Scholars focus on evidence-based history, reinforcing knowledge about the diverse and dynamic cultures that existed in these regions. The myth of Tartaria endures in part due to a cultural fascination with what might have been hidden or lost. However, historical research consistently emphasizes tangible, verifiable record. This methodical approach seeks to understand the shifting political and cultural landscapes over centuries without resorting to unfounded notion. In the end, the story of Tartaria serves as a reminder of the importance of critical analysis in historical study. Unraveling misconceptions requires careful examination of evidence and a commitment to understanding the complexities of human history. Such endeavors ensure clear, accurate depictions of the past, replacing myth with reality. The pursuit of truth remains central in differentiating between what is imaginarily constructed and what is historically verifiable. In the early 21st century, interest surged around the ancient civilization of Tartaria, fueled by a compelling notion: the Great Reset. Proponents claimed that Tartaria, a powerful empire, was mysteriously erased from historical records. Historical maps from the 16th to the 19th centuries depicted a vast region labeled as Tartaria in Asia and Eastern Europe. Historians considered it a geographic label rather than evidence of a singular empire. Some theorists speculated about advanced technologies and societal structures intentionally wiped from history. This sparked debates on historical accuracy and manipulation. In 2020, internet forums and social media groups revived these ideas, linking them to broader Great Reset conspiracies. Videos and blogs suggested that Tartaria was advanced in architecture and technology, citing star forts and elaborate building. Photos of structures in Europe and North America became focal points, with theorists arguing they were Tartarian creation. Historians and experts countered these claims by noting that the architectural styles matched known historical periods like the Renaissance and Baroque. They argued that these structures resulted from consistent architectural evolution rather than sudden advancements. Academic investigations showed no evidence of erased histories or suppressed technologies linked to Tartaria. Proponents of the theory pointed to unexplained events like mud floods, suggesting these were attempts by powerful elites to reset civilization and erase Tartaria. However, the evidence was speculative, often resting on unclear or misinterpreted photographs. Archaeologists and geologists found no substantial data supporting widespread cataclysmic events synchronizing with these claims. The Great Reset narrative capitalized on curiosity and skepticism about official narratives. Why does the notion of hidden histories captivate so strongly? It feeds a desire to challenge mainstream accounts, especially in turbulent times. Despite its allure, the evidence for Tartaria as a vast hidden empire remains unconvincing to the scholarly community. Detailed studies and cross-references with historical documents fail to substantiate the idea of an organized nation wiped from the record. Findings largely support Tartaria as a fragmented label applied to regions lacking centralized governance. Some internet theorists expanded the idea to include the concept of mud floods as a tool for historical erasure. They claimed large-scale disasters buried Tartarian achievements. These assertions often relied on photographs of partially buried buildings. Advocates argued these structures, uncovered in cities worldwide, were remnants of an advanced Tartarian society. Yet, experts found these claims lacked solid evidence. Geological studies showed no global cataclysm consistent with these narratives. Instead, urban development, natural sedimentation, and city planning typically explained buried structure. Additionally, advocates pointed to supposed technological marvels, such as intricate machinery and energy devices. These were claimed to be suppressed by those wishing to hide Tartaria's true capability. But historical analyses of these claims revealed misunderstandings of existing technology. The machines depicted often mirrored known inventions from industrial advancements in the 18th and 19th centuries. The idea of Tartaria also involved discussions about star forts, geometric fortresses found across Europe and the Americas. Supporters argued these were beyond the capabilities of known historical civilization. However, architectural historians identified these forts as products of military evolution, particularly during times of expanding European empires. Designs reflected strategic advancements and did not indicate any erased civilization. Conspiracy forums also linked Tartaria to the Great Reset, a concept suggesting elites periodically dismantle society to maintain control. These ideas intertwined with economic and political theories about global governance. Despite their popularity in some circles, these theories remain speculative without cohesive evidence. The allure of these narratives often lay in their mystery and challenge to accepted history. Theories flourished online, where echo chambers amplified doubtful interpretations. Historians and archaeologists continued to emphasize rigorous research and source verification. Peer-reviewed studies and existing documentation consistently contradicted claims of Tartaria's hidden empire. Why do such theories garner interest? They tap into human intrigue for the unknown and a collective questioning of established truths. They reflect broader dynamics of how societies process and occasionally rewrite their path. They propose alternative explanations in uncertain times, appealing to those seeking answers outside conventional frameworks. As the Tartaria discussion persists, so does the broader debate on history and evidence interpretation. Enthusiasts view themselves as truth seekers, navigating a complex web of historical narratives. Critics argue for caution and adherence to verifiable data. The discourse around Tartaria and the Great Reset epitomizes ongoing fascination with history's mysteries. This dialogue also emphasizes the importance of critical inquiry and historical literacy. Understanding how pasts are constructed helps discern fact from fiction. Tools of modern scholarship, from archaeology to digital archiving, aim to align narratives with tangible evidence. Yet, a human penchant for storytelling ensures that concepts like Tartaria and the Great Reset retain their allure. The complex interplay of confirmed history and speculative intrigue continues to shape how societies view their origins. This balance between curiosity and caution defines much of the ongoing conversation about forgotten empires and historical accuracy. The story of Tartaria serves as a reminder of the challenges in distinguishing between credible history and imaginative reconstruction. The idea of Tartaria extends across historical narratives, claiming a vast empire in northern Eurasia. Some believe it fell due to natural disasters. In the 18th and 19th centuries, European explorers labeled regions as Tartarian, but records offer scant evidence of an empire matching such description. Proponents of the conspiracy suggest catastrophes erased evidence. They cite earthquakes, floods, and other natural events as the primary causes. For instance, in 1842, an earthquake struck Taraz in Kazakhstan, resulting in significant destruction. Yet, little supports the theory that such events caused the collapse of a vast empire. Some theorists refer to the Toba catastrophe theory. It claims a supervolcano erupted, altering human populations. This supports the notion that massive volcanic events could erase cultures. However, evidence ties the Tuba eruption to approximately 74,000 years ago, far beyond Tartaria's supposed timeline. Flood legends appear frequently in these narratives. Proponents argue that reshaped landforms, like those in the Caspian Sea region, hint at ancient deluges. These stories, however, originate more from myths than verified history. The Black Sea deluge theory suggests a massive flood around 5,600 BCE Dawa. While intriguing, geological records show no direct link to Tartaria. Mud flood theories contribute to Tartaria myths. They propose mysterious floods buried buildings worldwide, pointing to anomalies in architecture, particularly Russian structures, as evidence. Yet, these architectural oddities often result from cultural evolution rather than sudden catastrophe. Evidence supports the notion that architectural styles adapt over time, independent of catastrophes. Consider the impact of the 1923 Kanto earthquake in Japan. It caused massive destruction, but did not erase cultural identity. This example illustrates how cultures recover and adapt beyond natural disasters. If Tartaria existed as claimed, tangible evidence would likely remain. Despite the allure of catastrophic events, the absence of coherent historical or archaeological evidence challenges Tartaria claim. The scientific method demands testable, consistent evidence, yet factual support remains elusive. The lack of evidence raises questions. Does it indicate a hidden truth, or merely a historical misunderstanding? Understanding Tartaria involves rigorous examination. Next, it's crucial to explore how technology and misinterpretations fuel the Tartarian myth. Digital media plays a significant role in perpetuating these ideas. Manipulated images circulate, depicting altered landscapes and architecture as proof of a hidden empire. Technology enables the creation and distribution of such material, blurring lines between fact and fiction. Historical misinterpretations add layers to the myth. Misunderstood maps and documents become cornerstones for believers. Historical atlases and texts often feature Tartaria as a term for unknown or loosely defined territories, not as evidence of a grand empire. Education and context are pivotal in addressing these misconceptions. By examining primary sources and applying critical thinking, it's possible to clarify the roots of these historical narratives. Analyzing records from explorers, traders, and historians discloses gaps between claims and verified history. The Tartaria narrative represents broader tendencies to find hidden explanations for observable phenomena. It shows how humans seek to understand complex histories through simpler, though incorrect, narratives. This case underscores the persistent challenge of distinguishing between myth and evidence in historical study. In conclusion, the story of Tartaria intertwines with elements of disaster, mystery, and interpretation. Unraveling its claims requires not only investigation, but also an understanding of how modern media shapes perceptions of the past. The search for truth in history continues, rooted in facts and resistant to unverified allure. The ancient Tartaria conspiracy suggests a historical cover-up of a vast and influential civilization. Enthusiasts claim missing documents, erased structures, and altered maps support this theory. They argue that Tartaria was a global empire with an influence to rival well-known civilizations. In 19th century London, the Great Exposition showcased advanced technology. Believers argue that much of this was reverse-engineered from Tartarian relics. Historical maps from the 18th century often included Tartaria, but the term vanished from later editions. Key figures such as historians and cartographers allegedly modified records to fit new geopolitical realities. By the early 20th century, references to Tartaria diminished, replaced by emerging nation-state. In the United States, the 1915 San Francisco Exposition featured buildings adorned with symbols linked to Tartaria. After the exposition, these structures were demolished, fueling speculation about knowledge suppression. Related documentation remains scarce, often lacking clear reasons for their removal. Academic shifts in the early 20th century allegedly contributed to this omission, aligning with New World views. Official stances present Tartaria as an outdated term for certain Central Asian regions. Yet, its rapid erasure from educational materials raises questions. Was this a routine update or an intentional obfuscation? Proponents suggest that powerful governments rewrote histories to control narratives. The Soviet Union's historical revisions serve as a parallel, asserting ideological dominance by suppressing inconvenient truths. Critics, however, argue for simpler explanation. They point to misinterpretations and reliance on anecdotal evidence. Enthusiasts, they say, often overlook the natural evolution of historical narratives. However, believers claim such dismissals ignore suppression patterns linked to political goals. The alleged suppression of Tartaria's history calls for further investigation. Enthusiasts often highlight architectural marvels and technologies they believe are linked to this lost empire. They assert that many buildings with distinctive styles reflect Tartarian influence, seen in structures around the world. Investigations into these claims often reveal discrepancies. The advanced technologies displayed at global expositions may have had various sources. Critics argue that attributions to Tartarian origins lack concrete proof. Instead, they suggest developments arose independently or from documented historical interactions. Lost technologies, according to believers, include supposed free energy devices and architectural feats. They cite structures like the intricate palaces and sprawling complexes seen in old photographs and drawings. These records, they claim, were systematically ignored or misrepresented in modern histories. References made to Tartaria in old maps and texts provide tantalizing hints, but often lack context. Some scholars argue that such references were not to a unified empire but to loosely connected regions. Misinterpretations, they suggest, may arise from attempts to fit scattered evidence into a cohesive narrative. Despite the controversies, the fascination with Tartaria persists. Questions surface around why certain architectural styles appear in disparate parts of the world. Theories abound about whether these styles suggest a shared origin or independent innovation. Amidst these debates, the necessity for critical evaluation becomes clear. Distinguishing between documented historical evolution and speculative claims requires rigorous analysis. Whether Tartaria was a lost empire or merely a misunderstood term, its story fuels ongoing curiosity. Continued exploration of these historical claims with balanced scrutiny might shed light on this enduring mystery. Future investigations could untangle the web of fact, fiction, and the space between, providing clearer insights into the past and its narrative. Skepticism among historians surrounds the topic of ancient Tartaria, challenging its purported existence. The term Tartaria surfaced in early maps and writings, describing a vast region in Eurasia. During the 16th to 18th centuries, cartographers labeled this expanse. Evidence linking it to a unified empire remains tenuous. Some historians claim Tartaria was an invention or misunderstanding by Western mapmakers. Gerardus, Mercator, and other European cartographers included Tartaria in their works. These maps relied heavily on second-hand accounts and limited direct exploration. No concrete archaeological evidence verifies the existence of a centralized Tartarian state. Primary sources from regions like China, Persia, and Russia fail to corroborate the notion of a cohesive Tartarian empire. Historical records reference nomadic groups, but do not describe a unified political entity. Historians argue that the absence of corroborative documents indicates Tartaria's mythical status rather than historical reality. The shifting borders on historical maps further complicate the narrative. Tartaria often encompassed areas like Siberia and Mongolia, inhabited by diverse tribes. These peoples lacked a centralized government, supporting the view that Tartaria represented a geographical region rather than a single empire. Without a cohesive social or political structure, the likelihood of widespread historical oversight diminishes. Proponents of Tartarian conspiracy theories cite architectural marvels as evidence, suggesting buildings of advanced design as remnants of a lost empire. However, historians note these structures often reflect known architectural traditions, easily attributed to local developments over time. There is no evidence of technological capabilities beyond the era's known constraints. The popularity of Tartaria as a concept in Europe likely stemmed from a lack of understanding of Asian political landscapes. With limited access, European explorers and scholars relied on myth and hearsay. Such reliance contributed to the acceptance of Tartaria as a plausible concept without rigorous scrutiny. Cartographic records from Europe show detailed illustrations, but they often lack consistency. The depiction of Tartaria varied significantly, indicating a lack of reliable information. Maps from different periods and cartographers often displayed different boundaries, emphasizing uncertainty and speculation rather than fact. The notion of Tartaria being a vast empire could stem from Europe's fascination with the exotic and unknown. Descriptions of distant lands often featured embellishments. These narratives helped create a sense of wonder, but were not rooted in verified historical accounts. Historians emphasize that real empires, like the Mongol Empire, left clear and abundant records. Archaeological efforts in regions allegedly part of Tartaria have yet to uncover evidence of a vast empire. Excavations in Siberia, Mongolia, and surrounding areas consistently highlight nomadic societies. These societies maintained rich cultures, but did not form centralized states akin to those in European historical contexts. The term Tartar itself, used in European texts, evolved over time, initially a reference to Mongol peoples or broadly to nomadic groups. It later became a generalized label. This oversimplification influenced the perception of an organized empire. Western texts frequently merge distinct cultures under a single banner, disregarding the complex realities of diverse tribes. Despite the lack of evidence, interest in Tartaria persists in popular culture. Some conspiracy theorists propose alternative histories or cover-ups. They argue for the possibility of erased histories and lost technologies. Historians counter these claims with systematic analysis of available data, emphasizing the need for verifiable evidence. Credible historical documentation or physical artifacts remain absent. Does the absence of evidence point to a cover-up, or simply an illusion built on misconception? Historians lean towards the latter, emphasizing scholarship rooted in available records. The investigation into Tartaria serves as a reminder of the importance of skepticism in historical study. Interest in lost empires often taps into a wider human curiosity about forgotten past. This interest is not new. It reflects a broader yearning to uncover secrets and mysteries. Historians argue for a critical approach, balancing the allure of mystery with the rigor of evidence-based inquiry. The narrative of Tartaria aligns with other historical myths, where imagination overtakes fact. Similar cases have emerged in different cultures, reinforcing the need for careful historical reconstruction. Future discussions will explore how historical inaccuracies can shape myths and collective memory. In the absence of concrete artifacts and reliable texts, Tartaria remains a narrative, more of myth than fact. It highlights the challenges historians face when piecing together the very complex puzzle of human history. Scholarly consensus relies on rigorous analysis and caution in accepting unverified claims. The story of Tartaria is less about the existence of a forgotten empire and more about understanding the construction of historical narratives. The theory of a hidden empire called Tartaria has emerged on internet forums and video platforms. Proponents argue that ancient maps and architectural wonders point to a lost civilization suppressed from history. Interest surged around 2016, fueled by viral videos and social media posts. Ancient maps, labeled with Tartaria, dating from the 16th to 19th centuries, depict regions now known as Russia and Central Asia. Supporters claim these maps indicate an advanced society erased from history. They attribute architectural marvels like the Great Wall of China and St. Basil's Cathedral to Tartarian architects. Video platforms feature content creators examining historical photographs, claiming evidence of Tartarian architecture with intricate facades and massive structure. Theories suggest these buildings housed advanced technologies or societies. Some allege the destruction of such buildings in the 20th century was a deliberate erasure of Tartarian influence. Podcasts and blogs analyze historical anomalies, linking them to this theory. This includes unexplained engineering feats and unusual design choices in ancient structure. Enthusiasts argue mainstream history overlooks or conceals such details, claiming known civilizations couldn't explain this legacy. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss these claims. Historians argue references to Tartaria reflect geographic misunderstandings. They cite shifting names and borders over centuries as evidence of an evolving understanding, not a conspiracy. Cartographers made errors, revising maps as exploration expanded knowledge. Popular media narratives persist despite scholarly rebuttal. Enthusiasts argue government cover-ups and manipulation hide Tartaria's truth. These claims find receptive audiences amid distrust in traditional institutions. The appeal of alternative histories grows, fueled by accessible media and skepticism of official narratives. Further exploration in video content reveals claims of a Tartarian technological prowess. Enthusiasts suggest possibilities of free energy and anti-gravity technology possessed by this civilization. These claims often rely on interpretation of building designs featuring intricate ironwork and expansive glass structures, not typical of the known time periods. Discussions often hinge on the role of exhibitions and world fairs in the 19th and early 20th centuries as potential showcases for hidden Tartarian technologies. Proponents suggest that these events revealed, then concealed, advancements later hidden or destroyed. They point to the sudden disappearance of grand structures, proposing a cover-up. Critics of the Tartaria theory highlight that architectural similarities result from shared styles or overlapping cultural influences, rather than evidence of a hidden empire. They argue that significant structures were documented and photographed in traditional records, refuting claims of a broad conspiracy. Historians emphasize the continuity and accessibility of records, showing that no sudden disappearance of architectural styles occurred. Instead, they illustrate gradual architectural evolution influenced by global exchanges over centuries. The narrative of a sudden vanishing empire lacks supporting archival evidence. Despite these counter-arguments, the appeal of a lost Tartarian empire continues. Online communities thrive on debating and expanding the theory, linking isolated historical oddities to support their claims. In digital spaces, complex ideas circulate rapidly, fostering belief in alternative histories. Social media enables the proliferation of such theories, connecting users across geographies. Enthusiasts share maps, photos, and stories, building a collective narrative that challenges conventional history. This community-driven exploration contributes to the theory's endurance, despite academic refutation. This ongoing interest raises questions about the role of digital platforms in shaping historical discourse. How do educators engage with persistent narratives, grounded in skepticism and accessed widely through media? Navigating these spaces requires understanding modern consumption of historical knowledge and the balance between fact and fiction. The exploration of Tartaria and similar theories hints at broader implications for understanding history in the digital age. As technology evolves, so does the interaction with historical content. This dynamic reflects a new phase in how history is communicated, consumed, and challenged in contemporary society. Understanding this pattern may shed light on future historical discourse. Conspiracy theories often emerge from a desire to link unrelated events. Tartaria conspiracy demonstrates this pattern. The internet has accelerated the spread of such ideas. In the early 2000s, online forums popularized the concept of Tartaria, an alleged vast empire. Enthusiasts claim hidden or destroyed evidence supports an alternative history, influencing perceptions of the past. Proponents argue that historical maps and architectural anomalies prove Tartaria's existence. They point to 16th century maps labeling parts of Asia as Tartary. These labels were common among Europeans unfamiliar with Central Asian territories. Enthusiasts also highlight grand buildings with no documented origins, suggesting they belong to this lost empire. However, they often misidentify architectural styles and ignore common design diffusion. Books and articles promote the belief that mainstream history omits Tartaria, but academic historians find no credible evidence supporting its existence as an empire. They emphasize that historical narratives require verifiable sources. Without these, claims fall into speculative theories. Conspiracy culture thrives on distrust of established institutions. Believers often question the authority of traditional academics, fueling interest and debate, and obscuring facts with conjecture. The Internet's role is significant as social media platforms amplify unverified claims quickly. Meme culture and viral posts generate interest through repetition and simplification. Over time, repetition can create a veneer of legitimacy. Contrast arises between historical research rigor and conspiracy narratives. Traditional research demands evidence before forming conclusions, whereas conspiracy theories often form conclusions first, then seek evidence to fit. Understanding the influence of digital platforms is crucial in discerning fact from fiction. Conspiracy theories blend belief with selected evidence, impacting society's grasp on history. Traditional historians rely on verifiable sources, while conspiracy believers focus on selective interpretation. This approach complicates public understanding of history. Exposing the mechanisms of these narratives requires comparing belief with evidence. Historians stress the importance of credible sources, while conspiracy theorists prioritize interpretations that support their views. This divergence poses challenges in maintaining clear understandings of history. The impact of technology on spreading misconceptions highlights the need for vigilance in digital literacy. Rapid dissemination of unverified theories underscores the importance of critical analysis in online content. Recognizing the dynamics of conspiracy culture aids in distinguishing verified historical discourse from fiction. In examining the Tartaria conspiracy, awareness of the Internet's role in amplifying unfounded claims is essential. Identifying discrepancies between conspiracy and verified history can illuminate the processes by which misinformation spread. As digital landscapes evolve, understanding these interactions becomes increasingly important in navigating historical narrative. In the quest for truth, reliance on solid evidence is key. Historians focus on integrating verifiable data, contrasting with the flexible interpretations common in conspiracy theories. This distinction underlines the challenges of separating historical fact from fiction in an age dominated by digital communication. Ultimately, bridging the gap requires recognizing the strengths and limitations of different approaches to history. A commitment to evidence-based research provides a foundation for accurate historical understanding. Engaging with these issues encourages a more informed perspective on past events and global interpretation. The Tartaria conspiracy suggests a vast, advanced civilization once existed, but was erased from history. Enthusiasts of this theory claim that evidence lies in world architecture and historical maps. These assertions stem from a mixture of documented observations and speculative interpretation. In the late 18th century, explorers noted unusual architectural styles in Eastern Europe and Asia, igniting speculation about these structures' origin. These designs appeared advanced and seemed present in different, sometimes unrelated, regions. Supporters of the Tartaria theory argue that these buildings are evidence of a once global and sophisticated Tartarian culture. The unique architectural styles perplexed explorers and scholars who struggled to fit them into known historical frameworks. Researchers often cite 16th and 17th century maps that display the name Tartaria, suggesting a vast empire stretching across parts of Asia and Europe. Proponents believe these maps indicate a unified civilization that challenges established historical narratives. The term Tartaria on old maps intrigues many, as it suggests an entity larger than typically recorded historical empires. These maps vary in depiction, sometimes expanding across continents, fueling the notion of a once mighty empire. Historical records rarely mention Tartaria explicitly, but believers find potential hints in ancient texts. References to steppe peoples like the Scythians are sometimes interpreted as indirect allusions to Tartaria. Such interpretations often hinge on selective readings of historical documents and the occasional overlap in geographic terminology. Although mainstream historians see these references as unrelated, proponents view them as coded evidence of Tartarian influence. Architectural features remain a central pillar of evidence for advocates of the Tartaria theory. Many ornate structures in Russia, Central Asia, and other regions are labeled as Tartarian because they appear sophisticated relative to the traditional timeline of the area's development. These buildings exhibit intricate designs, often with large domes and towers, suggesting advanced construction techniques and artistic sensibilities. Proponents argue that such features indicate a level of development not accounted for in conventional histories. However, modern historians attribute these remarkable buildings to regional influences and technologies. They contend that the diverse architectural elements reflect the skills of local builders and cultural exchanges with Europe and Asia over centuries. These structures are viewed as the result of incremental developments rather than the remains of an overarching imperial power. Cultural assimilation, trade networks, and territorial expansions contributed to these architectural features, according to standard historical interpretation. Proponents of the Tartaria theory also discuss mud flood theories, proposing that catastrophic floods buried advanced structures, erasing a thriving civilization from history. They suggest that many buildings were buried, leading to a historical void. The theory postulates an intentional or natural disaster that obliterated historical records and physical evidence. However, geological and historical evidence largely contradicts the occurrence of such cataclysmic floods. Scientists and historians find no substantial proof of these supposed events, and the absence of physical evidence in excavations further undermines these claims. While libraries and archives possess limited documentation on Tartaria, believers argue that this scarcity indicates a deliberate cover-up. They posit that Western powers manipulated historical narratives to align with dominant perspectives, erasing the influence of Tartaria from common understanding. This theory suggests intent to marginalize alternative histories and maintain a Eurocentric narrative. Yet, historians explain that missing records reflect typical challenges of historical documentation, including loss, destruction, and limited preservation. Despite scant archival material, the notion of Tartaria endures. The idea of a lost civilization captivates imaginations, offering an alternative to mainstream histories and fostering a sense of communal identity among those disenchanted with accepted narratives. The theory appeals to those who feel marginalized or skeptical of established historical accounts, providing a grand origin story where their own might be less notable. However, despite its appeal, concrete proof supporting the Tartaria theory remains absent. Historical and archaeological consensus points to diverse, overlapping cultures existing in the regions attributed to Tartaria. The evidence suggests that these areas were not under a single unified empire, but rather a tapestry of societies with various influences and interactions. Mainstream historical research supports the notion of fragmented cultural realities evolving over time. The debate surrounding Tartaria persists, fueled by the allure of hidden history and the prospects of rewriting past narrative. While intriguing artifacts and relics are occasionally brought into the discussion, tangible evidence consistently leans toward myth rather than reality. The fascination with Tartaria reflects larger questions about history, culture, and identity, continuing to spur conversations and investigations, albeit without substantial, definitive proof. In Moscow, 2016, a group revived interest in Tartaria, an alleged lost empire that they claimed had been hidden by mainstream history. This empire, according to them, once flourished across vast stretches of Eurasia. It captivated certain individuals, especially those wary of authority and mainstream historical accounts. Online forums quickly became a hub for spreading tales of Tartaria, feeding into the curiosity and skepticism of others. The narrative suggested a grand cover-up, which further enticed many people. Conspiracy theories often arise as attempts to explain complex global events. People naturally seek patterns and coherence in a chaotic world, and these stories provide seemingly straightforward solutions. This tendency isn't new. Throughout history, during times of social or political upheaval, conspiracy theories have provided alternative explanations that challenge official narratives. Studies show that individuals who are dissatisfied with official accounts often turn to these alternate stories for answers. For example, a 2014 research paper highlighted how individuals with low trust in government institutions are more susceptible to embracing conspiracy theories. The paper suggested that such individuals find these theories comforting because they invert perceived power dynamics. By flipping the narrative, people can reclaim a sense of control or understanding over their world. This phenomenon is further compounded by the gap between rapid technological advances and the slower pace of social adaptation, which can fuel distrust. As technology continues to connect societies, fears of unseen control or manipulation grow. Social media, in particular, plays a crucial role in reinforcing pre-existing beliefs through its algorithms. Users are often pulled into deeper circles of conspiracy as they find like-minded individuals who share and validate their views. This repetition forms an echo chamber where doubts gradually fade and certainty takes hold. In this digital environment, even the most outlandish claims can gain credibility through sheer repetition. A 2018 study demonstrated how the act of repeating a claim can significantly enhance its perceived truth. When people hear something multiple times, especially from different sources that seem independent, they begin to accept it as more accurate. This phenomenon is known as the illusory truth effect, where familiarity is mistaken for truth. Humans have an innate desire for understanding and coherence. Conspiracy theories fill cognitive gaps that uncertainty leaves behind. For some, these narratives satisfy deeper psychological needs. They often create a sense of community and belonging among their adherents. When trust in traditional narratives erodes, alternative stories flourish as individuals search for explanations that align with their worldviews. The resurgence of interest in Tartaria is one of many such examples. It fits the broader pattern of how people are drawn to stories that challenge conventional history. In many cases, these theories also touch on elements of real historical events, which can lend them a veneer of authenticity that makes them more convincing to certain audiences. Understanding why conspiracy theories thrive involves examining aspects of human psychology and social behavior. People are drawn to narratives that offer clear villains or explain perceived injustices. These stories can become compelling, especially when they tap into existing fears or prejudices. The ancient Tartaria conspiracy theory offers a window into the motivations and mechanisms behind such beliefs. While rooted in fictional claims, it demonstrates how new evidence or narratives can reshape individuals' views of history and reality. As new information emerges, it can either reinforce or challenge these beliefs, leading to further debates and discussion. The rise of conspiracy theories is not merely a contemporary issue, but rather a persistent feature of human society. It reflects enduring questions about authority, knowledge, and trust. As societies evolve and change, the narratives people cling to will also transform, adapting to new contexts and challenges. In essence, the story of Tartaria and similar conspiracy theories highlight the complex interplay between belief, evidence, and trust. They remind us of the power of stories in shaping how people understand our world, both past and present. Therefore, investigating the roots and ramifications of these narratives offers valuable insights into human cognition and society. Knowing this helps us illuminate the broader implications of how we construct and deconstruct historical knowledge. Tartaria appears on European maps from the 16th to 19th centuries, stretching from Eastern Europe to Siberia. Its supposed vastness intrigues historians and the public. Legends and inconsistent cartographic depictions fueled speculation about its culture and influence. Renaissance Europe witnessed the height of Tartaria's allure. Cartographers like Gerardus Mercator included Tartaria prominently. The region symbolized the unknown and the exotic. Writings by explorers like Marco Polo filled gaps with tales of grand cities and civilizations. Polo described Tartarians as skilled horsemen, adding to its mystique. His accounts, although questioned, painted a picture of wealth and power. European travelers brought back stories of opulent Tartarian courts, claiming sprawling architecture and complex social structures. Real contact remained minimal, allowing myths to thrive unchallenged. This lack of reliable information turned Tartaria into a canvas for imagination. It became a means to envision what lay beyond Europe's understanding. Historians like Joseph Needham examined Tartaria's depiction. They explored why Western maps emphasized it. Real Tartary, linked to Central Asian Kanates and peoples, remained misunderstood. Misinterpretations often stemmed from Europe's limited exposure and desire to categorize the unknown. By the 18th century, claims about Tartaria dwindled as Russia expanded eastward. Russian influence brought clearer accounts, dispelling numerous myths. Modern times see conspiracy theories reigniting interest, proposing elaborate alternate histories. Some suggest hidden empires and advanced technologies suppressed by mainstream history. Such theories find an audience online, where media fosters speculation. Websites proliferate with maps and symbols, claiming evidence of lost civilizations. Enthusiasts argue these reveal inconsistencies in accepted narratives. Mainstream historians refute these claims with evidence. Excavations and records point to complex Central Asian cultures, but not a cohesive Tartarian empire. No archaeological findings support claims of Tartarian megastructures or technologies. They emphasize imagination and the human tendency to romanticize the unknown, persisting despite historical corrections and clarified accounts. The allure may stem from a desire to find hidden histories. Modern interest might reflect a quest for narratives outside established frameworks. People often seek stories that challenge dominant historical perspectives. Tartaria serves as a lens for exploring these broader themes of knowledge and mystery. This enduring intrigue is less about fact and more about human curiosity. Understanding Tartaria's true historical context requires examining the real cultural and political landscapes. Real connection with Central Asian peoples existed, but was marked by misunderstanding and limited contact. The known region of Tartary was inhabited by diverse ethnic groups and governed by various Kanates. These societies had their own rich cultures and histories, distinct from the myths popularized in Europe. The Russian Empire's eastward expansion in the 18th century played a significant role in demystifying Tartaria. As Russia extended its reach, more accurate mapping and documentation emerged. This brought greater clarity to the region's political and cultural realities. Russian chroniclers and historians documented the diverse peoples and their complex social structures. Slowly, the mythical image of Tartaria faded as concrete historical evidence emerged. Throughout this period, researchers and explorers unveiled a broader understanding of Central Asia's historical dynamics. Scholars uncovered the sophisticated trade networks, artistic achievements, and nomadic traditions that characterized the societies within the area once labeled as Tartary. Archaeological findings revealed cities that served as hubs along the Silk Road, emphasizing the importance of this region in ancient trade. These real histories and societies provide a more accurate depiction of what once was a land of mystery. The fascination with Tartaria, both historical and modern, highlights a broader human interest in exploring alternative narratives. It reflects the quest to uncover what might lie beyond established borders of understanding. Transitioning from myth to reality, Tartaria's story underscores the importance of thorough historical research and critical examination of sources. Accurate documentation and a willingness to reevaluate past narratives foster deeper comprehension of history's complexity. As historians continue to delve into archives and archaeological sites, the true narratives of regions like Tartaria continue to unfold. Tartaria, as a concept, challenges historical narratives. Some describe it as a vast empire erased from history, spanning parts of Europe and Asia, but most historians disagree. Reliable evidence appears absent. Historians cite maps and documents across several centuries, without reference to a unified Tartarian empire. In contrast, records from nations like Russia and China are verified and robust. Maps labeled Tartaria often originated from flawed European depictions. Cartographers, lacking accurate geographic knowledge, made errors. These inaccuracies fueled misconceptions. Proponents claim artifacts and architecture as evidence, but historians disagree. Buildings called Tartarian typically align with known architectural styles of their eras. Archaeological evidence for Tartaria as a distinct civilization is missing. The term Tartary historically referred to Central Asian regions in a general sense. European explorers used it to describe areas without detailed knowledge. Historians rely on sources like the Novgorod Chronicle and Marco Polo. These texts fit descriptions of known cultures at the time. References to Tartar peoples often meant Mongol and Turkic groups, not an unseen empire. Continued studies in Central Asian anthropology and archaeology do not support Tartaria's empire status. Could a civilization of such proposed size vanish without trace? The consistent lack of findings challenges the theory. The burden of proof remains unmet by Tartaria supporters. Frequent mention of Tartaria across online platforms reflects fascination rather than fact. Conversations often highlight speculation over evidence. Historians warn against accepting claims lacking substantial verification. Documents rediscovered or reevaluated occasionally enter discussions but rarely stand up to scrutiny. Scholars emphasize context over sensationalism. Historical analysis prioritizes documented evidence and credible sources. Physical evidence in historical inquiry carries weight. The absence of artifacts or structures specific to Tartaria weakens its legitimacy. Known civilizations leave behind markers. Tartaria does not. Historians clarify distinctions in terminology and mapping errors of the past. Tartary referred broadly to regions without clear boundaries. Maps from the 16th century reflect these ambiguities, misinterpreted as evidence of an empire. The analysis of historical architecture reveals typical influences from verified period. Structures mislabeled as Tartarian often have clear origins in existing cultures. Architectural styles are categorized by era, aiding historical identification. Renowned texts of travelers and chroniclers make no mention of an advanced or cohesive Tartarian society. These narratives capture known dynamics among Mongol and Turkic groups with no indication of a hidden empire. Central Asian archaeology reveals no evidence aligning with claims of a Tartarian civilization. Excavations uncover artifacts from recognized historical groups, but none indicate existence beyond known tribes and states. Historians remain consistent in their approach, relying on verifiable evidence. This methodology underscores the importance of credible documentation. Challenges to mainstream views require substantial proof, not speculation. Historians continue to study maps, texts, and physical evidence regarding regional history. A focus on precise documentation aids in distinguishing fact from fiction. Mainstream historical analysis maintains critical evaluation standards. Tartaria's supposed empire lacks foundation in credible archaeological or textual evidence. Misunderstandings arise from historical ambiguities and misrepresentations in maps. Evidence for an empire remains absent in data from reliable historical records. Persistent claims invite re-examination of sources, but conclusions reaffirm known historical narratives. Most historical inquiry into the region involves validated accounts and tangible evidence. Tartaria's proposed history continues to lack substantiation. Scholars prioritize empirical studies, reviewing findings with established methods. Archaeology and anthropology continually explore Central Asia, uncovering affiliations to known societies. Navigating past myths, historians aim to separate accurate history from speculative claims. The Tartaria narrative, often discussed without evidence, provides a case study in myth versus documented history. Fully substantiated accounts of existing empires take precedence over speculative stories. When claims lack grounding in factual evidence, the scientific community reserves judgment. The absence of evidence remains an element in historical argumentation. Historical discourse relies on proven accuracy, favoring evidence drawn from recognized records and credible accounts. Tartaria, much discussed, remains unverified within strict academic standards. The claim surrounding the ancient civilization of Tartaria suggests a hidden empire erased from history. Many believe it was a sophisticated society removed by modern powers. This theory fascinates conspiracy enthusiasts and causes debate in historical circles. Tartaria appears in discussions about Eurasian history. Maps from the 16th to the 19th centuries label vast Asian territories as Tartary.y. These lands covered parts of Russia, China, and Central Asia. European explorers and cartographers documented Tartary with limited information. Their accounts and mysterious maps fuel theories of a forgotten empire. Proponents assert Tartaria was technologically advanced, rivaling great civilization. They claim it boasted architecture surpassing contemporaneous societies. They cite structures like the St. Petersburg Hermitage and the Moscow Kremlin, claiming uncommon designs for their periods. However, the architecture belongs to known contexts. The Hermitage was built from 1764 onwards under Catherine the Great. The Kremlin's structures date back to renovations by Ivan III in the 15th century, fitting within Russia's documented history. Claimants argue maps display Tartaria as an empire, but maps often suffer inaccuracies, reflecting cartographers' misunderstanding. Early European maps show many inaccuracies due to explorers' limited knowledge. Tartaria on maps often denoted loosely governed territories inhabited by nomadic tribes. Supporters mention supposed mud flood events that buried Tartaria, questioning why architectural features remain underground. Geological studies show natural sediment deposits, and urban development account for changes in ground levels over centuries. The writings used as evidence come from speculative sources, rarely providing archival or archaeological support. Modern historical methods rely on comprehensive cross-referenced data. Without verifiable records, such claims cannot withstand historical scrutiny. Critics highlight Tartaria never developed a distinct language or currency. No traceable administrative records exist. What explains this lack of evidence? Is it reasonable to assume an advanced society would leave no tangible legacy? Tartary's presence on maps often represented foreign lands familiar, yet mysterious to Europeans. This framing arose from trade routes and shared myths, bridging east and west. Technological claims within the Tartaria hypothesis require further examination. Proponents often cite advanced engineering and construction techniques. They argue that certain buildings worldwide share architectural elements with the supposed Tartarian style. However, architectural similarities often result from shared influences and practical needs rather than a shared origin. Engineers and builders across different cultures developed similar techniques independently, driven by similar challenges. Historical records show architectural advancements often emerge through cultural exchanges, trade, and conquest, making isolated developments unlikely. Without supporting archaeological evidence, assertions about Tartarian technological superiority remain speculative. Maps naming Tartary often served functional purposes for trade and communication. Cartographers used generic labels for vast, lesser-known regions. Tartaria was one such label, encompassing vast steppes and nomadic societies, not a centralized empire. Proponents often reference the so-called Great Tartarian War, an event claimed to have led to the civilization's destruction. However, no credible historical records mention such a conflict. Major historical events affecting these regions, like the Mongol invasions, are well documented, but none point to a hidden empire's fall. Additionally, historical documentation from the regions supposedly encompassed by Tartaria shows a tapestry of diverse cultures and political entities, not a unified empire. These records include interactions with neighboring powers, displaying complex histories that leave little room for a lost, advanced civilization narrative. Some highlight unusual architectural features found in certain buildings to support the Tartaria narrative, suggesting advanced design knowledge. But historical analysis shows these features often reflect regional styles and adaptations. Many such styles became prominent through known historical and cultural interaction. Documents and artifacts from cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg undergo extensive study by historians and archaeologists. Their findings consistently support established historical timelines. There is no existing evidence pointing to the erased existence of an advanced Tartarian civilization. What remains of Tartaria is a name on old maps and in fables, not a hidden empire. The mystery surrounding it speaks to the challenges of understanding history through incomplete records and evolving interpretations. In conclusion, the Tartaria hypothesis captures imagination but lacks evidence. History thrives on records, artifacts, and tangible links. Without these, stories like Tartaria's remain speculative. Each unverified claim challenges historians to strengthen the foundation of human history through rigorous inquiry and evidence. The acceptance of Tartaria as a historical reality requires rethinking narratives and re-examining evidence. Recently, Tartaria refers to a supposed empire said to span Asia and Europe. Proponents claim it existed alongside historic nations, influencing both historians and enthusiasts. Maps from the 16th to 19th centuries labeled vast areas as Tartary, fueling arguments of its prominence. Historians explain Tartary as a term Europeans used for lands inhabited by nomadic cultures. Marco Polo's travels described regions with Tatars, shaping Western ideas of a vast territory. By the 18th century, scientific exploration and political interests created more accurate maps, replacing labels like Tartaria. Modern conspiracy theories misinterpret these historical terms as evidence of hidden empires. Satellite and archaeological surveys do not support the existence of Tartaria as an advanced civilization. Instead, they reveal distinct societies, such as the Mongols and Turks, who played significant roles in these regions. Linguistic studies show no evidence of a Tartarian language expected if it had administrative power. Proponents of Tartaria cite architectural similarities across regions as evidence. However, historians attribute these to cultural exchange and conquest. The spread of architectural styles follows known trade routes and alliances. For instance, the Mongol Empire facilitated exchanges across its vast expanse, spreading ideas, art, and architecture. This claim of a hidden empire often stems from a desire to uncover secret history. Some see it as a reaction against mainstream historical narratives, suggesting untapped truths await exploration. However, strong evidence to support Tartaria's grandeur remains elusive. The debate around Tartaria reflects broader questions about how alternative histories shape collective memory. Historical narratives often change with new discoveries and interpretation, but any historical narrative requires consistent evidence to gain acceptance. In the modern era, some theories suggest an intentional suppression of Tartaria's history, which lacks tangible substantiation. Conspiracy theories may claim that records were either destroyed or hidden, yet historical evidence consistently shows no trace of such a widespread empire in archaeological or textual forms. Historians emphasize the importance of distinguishing between myth and evidence-based history. Without concrete archaeological remnants or distinct cultural records, most scholars dismiss the notion of a unified empire called Tartaria. They focus instead on identifiable historical dynamics involving known groups like the Mongols, who left a significant impact across Asia and parts of Europe. The conversation about Tartaria and hidden histories demonstrates the ongoing challenge of interpreting our past. With each claim, evidence must stand up to scrutiny. While mystery and intrigue drive interest, historical rigor demands verifiable proof. Future inquiries might delve into the true history of these regions through robust archaeological exploration and integration of historical data. Plenty remains to learn about the dynamics of Eurasian cultures and interactions. But amid speculation, strong and consistent evidence remains the cornerstone of validating historical narratives. This discussion shows the fine line between curiosity about forgotten histories and the necessity of adherence to evidence. As interest persists, so does the responsibility to ensure claims align with credible research and proven facts. The ancient Tartaria conspiracy suggests a hidden empire lost to history. In the 17th century, European maps depicted Tartaria stretching across parts of Asia. Some claim these maps represent a vast, advanced civilization. Historical records regarding Tartaria remain sparse, inviting speculation. Known regions like Siberia and Central Asia often appeared on these maps. Historians affirm these areas were home to various nomadic tribes and cultures. Tartaria's portrayal on maps reflected European perceptions rather than a unified empire. Tartaria appeared prominently on European maps during periods of exploration. Cartographers often lacked detailed knowledge of regions far from Europe. This led to speculative or inaccurate depiction. Tartaria served as a convenient label for unknown land. European maps relied heavily on second-hand accounts, which exaggerated or misunderstood local conditions. The concept of a grand Tartarian empire arises from these cartographic anomalies. Historians stress that practical geographic knowledge was limited, affecting the accuracy of these maps. Claims of a grand Tartarian empire often cite architectural wonders in Russia and Central Asia. Proponents argue these works indicate a sophisticated society, but the structures are usually attributed to known empires, such as the Mongols or Russia. For example, the impressive Kremlin in Moscow reflects Russian construction and design tradition. The ancient cities of Samarkand and Bukhara reveal significant Mongol and Persian influences. Artifacts and ruins suggest diverse cultural influences rather than a singular lost empire. Archaeological evidence aligns with established historical timelines, reinforcing known events and transformations in these regions. Some Tartaria enthusiasts claim suppression of evidence. They argue historical tragedies erased Tartaria's existence. Theories suggest wars and natural disasters served as cover for systematic erasure. However, historical evidence shows wars and natural events left diverse records across regions. Archives reveal no coordinated attempts to eliminate a specific civilization. Wars, migrations, and political changes are well documented through multiple sources. Historians rely on cross-referencing documents and artifacts to reconstruct past events. This solid consistency undermines claims of deliberate suppression. Linguistic studies contradict claims of a lost civilization. Local dialects and languages evolved from recognizable roots, indicating continuity. Documented languages across Siberia and Central Asia, like Turkic and Mongolic, stem from established linguistic family. This lineage counters the notion of an isolated and distinct Tartarian language. Linguistic evolution in nomadic societies shows adaptation through contact and exchange, rather than abrupt disappearance. Existing dialects reflect cultural continuity and historical connections. The theory of a repressed Tartarian language conflicts with linguistic evidence. Historians assert that the fascination with Tartaria reveals a desire to explore overlooked human civilization. Myths about Tartaria may grow from historical knowledge gaps and unconscious biases. The allure of a secret empire persists because it challenges conventional history. Interest in Tartaria highlights the need to scrutinize historical documentation. Such conjectures prompt the examination of potential biases in record-keeping. Examining the Tartaria theory can guide discussions on historical interpretation and gaps. The evolution of Tartaria as a myth involves media influence and popular narratives. In recent decades, online platforms facilitated the spread of Tartaria conspiracy theories. Social media and forums allowed wide dissemination of unverified claims. Visual media amplified these theories, often presenting speculative imagery. The rapid propagation uncovers media's role in shaping historical myths. Tartaria's myth underscores the impact of digital communication on historical perception. This interplay between media and history invites future research into their complex relationship. Fascination with Tartaria and other hidden empires shows the human intrigue with lost knowledge. It reflects an appetite for mystery and discovery, even when contrary to evidence. Revisiting supposed lost empires stimulates discourse on accepted historical narratives. These stories encourage exploration of humanity's past's complexity. Understanding this fascination offers insight into human nature's quest for history. By learning about Tartaria, scholars can explore how myths emerge and evolve, influenced by cultural and technological context. In conclusion, historians and researchers explore Tartaria myths to grasp the phenomenon of historical conspiracies. They evaluate why certain narratives captivate public imagination despite scant evidence. Understanding the origins and spread of Tartaria theories helps address misinformation and its broader implication. The investigation into historical conspiracies lays the groundwork for understanding public perceptions of history. This approach enriches discussions on historical veracity and the interpretation of evidence. Finally, the next chapter delves into the methods and motivations behind conspiracies like these. Journey through Tartaria's myth uncovers broader lessons about culture, communication, and memory. Researchers seek to explain why and how such myths arise, ultimately exploring the nature of history itself. The Tartaria conspiracy suggests a hidden advanced civilization across Eurasia. Proponents claim Tartaria's history was erased. This theory originates from Soviet-era maps labeling large areas as Tartaria. In the 17th and 18th centuries, such labels were common for regions outside imperial control. The theory gained traction online, driven by architectural similarities in various locations. Believers point to unexplained ruins and structures, asserting advanced technologies that challenge established timelines. Historians trace these ideas to misinterpretations and coincidences. The term Tartaria historically referred to vast, undefined regions not fully integrated into European knowledge. Architectural parallels often reflect stylistic influences rather than a lost civilization. Ruins cited by proponents typically align with known histories of local cultures rather than an overarching empire. Archaeological research could clarify these claims. Systematic excavations in Siberia and Central Asia are required. Radiocarbon dating of artifacts may establish clearer timelines, challenging or affirming current models. Satellite imagery can reveal large-scale planning patterns, while ground-penetrating radar could expose subsurface structures. Digital archives might contain maps or documents suggesting different historical narratives. Cross-disciplinary methods could verify findings. Linguistic analysis of alleged Tartarian symbols might link them to existing languages. Genetic studies of regional populations could track migration patterns, supporting or disproving a unified ancestry. Climate data might explain societal changes, providing context to alleged declines. Skeptics argue that similar developments across cultures don't substantiate a mythical empire. Instead, they see parallel evolution. Why attribute these phenomena to a single entity? Scientific exploration offers potential confirmation or rejection of these claims. Architectural similarities in far-flung locations often result from shared influences through trade and conquest. For example, the presence of Greco-Roman columns in various parts of the world doesn't suggest a single civilization, but shows the spread of influence. Proponents' claims of advanced technologies are often unsupported by physical evidence. Many cited innovations are explainable through known historical technologies. Historians emphasize that maps labeled Tartaria were by European cartographers who lacked detailed knowledge. These regions were often home to Mongol, Turkic, and other nomadic peoples, contributing to their portrayal as a monolithic other in European eyes. Modern border definitions make these historical representations seem like organized empires when they were not. To truly understand these claims, examining the documented histories of existing cultures is key. Archaeological findings in these areas often reveal well-documented societies with neither evidence nor records of a unified Tartarian state. Historical records from China, Persia, and Russia describe interactions with these nomadic groups, yet none mention a Tartarian empire. Satellite and radar technologies can examine terrain and uncover patterns consistent with known settlements. Ground-penetrating radar might identify structures, aiding in understanding how these regions develop. Population genetics further informs the debate, detailing movements and intermixing rather than isolation. As investigations continue, the narrative around Tartaria may either validate old claims or reinforce conventional histories. The search for evidence persists, but critical examination remains essential. Whether through archaeology, genetics, or historical analysis, the pursuit of truth about Tartaria is ongoing.